Grand Seiko, a brand that manages to be in the same conversations as Rolex, Patek Philippe, even A. Lange & Söhne, but also spends time in conversations about the latter half of its name, Seiko. How is it that a brand manages to transcend this entire spectrum of quality? How does a brand manage to be, on the one hand, underrated, on the other hand, revered? I don't have the answers to these questions. So I reached out to my new friend, Engineer Wannabe, who's an avid Grand Seiko collector, to get his take on what makes this brand so special, what to look out for when looking for a Grand Seiko. And of course, as you know, I tend to ramble a lot. These conversations tend to go quite long. So if you do want to jump around, make sure you look in the description below. You will see timestamps to jump to certain topics within our conversation. But enough of the intro, let's jump right into the credits and then find out what it is that makes Grand Seiko so special. What's up?
Nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, likewise, man. And congratulations again on hitting that collection goal I saw in the last video.
Oh yeah, I'm actually wearing that watch right now, the
Oh, very nice.
259.
Yeah, I figured I'd at least match the white dial theme. I've got the Cartier Pasha on.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's so cool.
Thought I'd at least match in theme. But yeah, man, thanks. First off, thanks for like making the time and waking up early and taking on your day off and all that to have a little chat. Starting out, like, how did you get into watches to begin with? Because you've been collecting for a fair bit of time, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, not that long compared to a lot of others. Yeah, so 3 years, I think.
The good thing is you've gone through quite a few watches since you started. Like, what did you first start out your collection with?
To start, it was actually really funny. I used to be, well, I am a tech guy first. I used to be a tech reviewer way back in the day, and I kind of let that go away, thinking, it's kind of excessive, getting these phones in, which is really funny now, but getting all these new phones in, new consumer tech devices in, to review, and using my own money to do that. I thought it was really irresponsible. But so what happened was I've been into the smartwatches for a long time. I think I started with the Sony Live View, which a lot of people won't even know, but it was one of the first smartwatches. Moved on to the Pebble, kept moving on, moving up the Moto watch, and LG watch. So it kept coming down the pipeline up until I got the really expensive Nixon smartwatch. It was a black, PVD coated, really cool, tactical, massive smartwatch that I really enjoyed. And I was thinking, so at this point, my second child, so my daughter, was born. I was thinking, you know what? I can't keep doing this smartwatch thing, keep upgrading, keep buying new phones. I'm going to do the responsible thing. I'm just going to buy a Seiko, and I'm going to call it quits. Just going to buy a Seiko. So that's what I did. I went to, we have a department store called the Bay, Hudson's Bay. And I walked in, I bought a Seiko Recraft 43 millimeter, huge watch. It wore really small though back in the day, 3 years ago. I bought one of those. Was really excited about it, and I thought, you know what, I should look into this mechanical watch thing. So yeah, basically fell down the rabbit hole, and I guess out of the frying pan into the fire kind of situation.
I don't imagine, it doesn't seem like it played out in how you thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to move on to the responsible thing to do, which is just get just get a Seiko and call it that. And
yeah, fortunately for me, I was able to find an AD after a while that was, kind enough to take my watches back in pretty much at cost. Okay. So they helped me go up the ladder, which probably was for to their benefit because I kept going up the ladder, and I went past the ladder. So I went from Seiko. I got the first video I did on my channel was the SJE073. So this was the frost dial um, watch, Seiko, really high end at the time. It was the most expensive, one of the most expensive Seikos at the time, um, with the new 6L movement. So I managed to get that, and I was like, okay, so I'm set. This is a really nice Seiko. It's under the radar. It's beautiful to look at. But then, yeah, the Grand Seiko came up at the same point. I was thinking, okay, the SBGX. It's a quartz movement, but I could. I could, trade it in. These guys are really good. They take it at the cost I paid it for. So went up the ladder past everything to the Zeniths. So I had a Zenith El Primero for a while, and then I just realized, no, this is really, really cool. It doesn't give me the feeling of the Grand Seiko, so I came down a notch to Grand Seiko, which I've settled in. So I kind of basically set my collection on Grand Seiko.
What sort of got you in, or what appeals to you about sort of Grand Seiko especially? Because it's not for everyone. What sort of, I guess, what sort of drew you to sort of stay with that as the cornerstone of your collection?
Well, I think first and foremost, it would be the dials. So the dials are really special on most Grand Seikos, if not all. So the dials, I think, was the hook, and it kind of is what grabs you, at least grabs me. Um, and then once you see the dial, you take a closer look at most of the Grand Seiko watches. You see the polishing, the finishing in the cases. It's not simple. Even in their all polished cases, there are so many facets, different angles and shapes in their polished cases. And then you learn about the fact that this case was hand finished by someone. A human being finished this case, and that kind of adds to the allure of Grand Seiko to me. Um, and then you find out about the movements, the great story, the heritage of Seiko and Grand Seiko, how they were going after the Swiss, so to speak, trying to better them, trying to one up them, not from a place of, well, I guess I can't speak to their motives, but the great story, I guess, is the fact that they were so inspired by the Swiss that they tried to, out of admiration, they went after the Swiss mechanical movements. Of course, that could be a bunch of horseradish, but so this heritage and the story.
I think that's part of like the magic of watches is the story about them, like is the history behind them. And I do like the idea of like, I imagine like in sort of I think it was the 70s when Seiko was sort of coming onto the scene in terms of outside of Japan. It's cool, like they were seemingly, I guess, at that point, the underdog, and then they just sort of leapfrogged ahead of everyone. What is it about sort of the high-end quartz that stands out to you? Because I think that's a very interesting level of, there's not that many high-end manufacturers that are still working with quartz, but Grand Seiko is one of the ones that really seems to still be quite married to the technology. So what sort of, I guess, what goes through your mind when you're looking at something that, that you're paying a decent amount of money for, but it's still quartz? What sort of, I guess, is the appeal in that for you?
Yeah. So, I would say the one of the blue ceramic dial, the SBGP015, that's the reference number. That's not worth it. That's not worth the money. It's in Canadian dollars, I think that's 5,100 Canadian dollars. It's a very cool case, a very cool design, but I think I mean, who knows? In a few years, it might be worth it. You never know what's going to happen with this high-end quartz stuff, but it's more of an emotional purchase with that. I think I purchased it knowing how much I love that shade of blue, and the dial matched the bezel so well, and the fact that it was a ceramic fixed bezel, which I found really cool. The shape, the case shape was so unique. I thought that was really cool too, and so that's why I got that piece. But as for quartz, I think the reason why I really enjoy the 9F quartz is because, again, the whole over-engineered aspect of it. They if you're not familiar, Seiko grows their own quartz crystals, and they actually age the quartz crystals for 3 months with a current. So they get like the cream of the crop quartz crystals to put in their 9F movements. Whether it's their affordable 2,700 Canadian dollar ones like the one I'm wearing today, the SBGX259, whether it's that one or their higher end quartz movements like the 9F 80, 85, 80 movements with the GMT. Um, Whichever one it may be, they put the same amount of effort into it, the same cream of the crop quartz crystals, and then you see that everything is made out of metal within the quartz movements, right? Usually you expect it to be plastic, like the cheap quartz one. So this thing is over engineered. It's plated, and these quartz movements have a service interval of 50 years. So crazy over engineered. The reason they can do that is because they have a super sealed chamber in the main part of the gear train and stuff like that. So even if you do pop the case back off to change the battery every 2 to 3 years, that part of the movement is still sealed. So again, super over engineered, beautifully decorated as well. There's a very few amount of Grand Seiko Quartz watches that have a display case back, but if you do find one, it's a beautiful movement to look at. So all these things, they over time added up to me really wanting a quartz movement in my collection, like the Grand Seiko Quartz movement.
I think maybe the fact that they've sort of kept quartz within their collection as they've grown, like you're right, you've got Breitling still does a few sort of their super quartz, the thermal compensated ones. Rolex ditched it a while ago, obviously, but somehow it makes sense with Grand Seiko, like just from what I've seen, like I don't know, it doesn't. I think maybe the fact they've never really ditched it, they've kept it as some part of their collection while still doing the high beats, still doing the spring drives, still doing the regular. I don't know, like for me, when I think of it, at least I think if I was gonna get a high-end quartz or even a quartz in general, I'd be more comfortable getting a Grand Seiko one versus like any of the other examples that are currently or previously on. And and you touched on a great point, the shapes as well. Like the shape on that blue ceramic dial, blue dial and the ceramic bezel one, the shape on that is so cool. Like I've only reviewed one Grand Seiko, was the titanium and ceramic one with GMT and chronograph. I'm not gonna get the reference number, but hopefully you know the one I mean. It was spring drive. It was like so over the top, enormous watch as well. But it was so cool because it had, for starters, it had like the ceramic on the sides was actually separate pieces that are screwed in, which I thought was really cool, and that was all titanium, and then it had the ceramics on the center links. But just the amount of different facets and shapes, it looks so cool. Or even the Godzilla watch that they did last year, I think. That one, the shape, it just looks insane. It's so different from anything you'll find in the market. So like, that's something that's got me sort of attracted to them, is the shape and also the finishing on some of the movements. Like on some of their display case back, the spring drive ones, the hand wound ones are beautifully finished as well. Like it just exceeds expectations on so many levels from the ones that I've seen. Because also like from what I've seen, just the quality of the finishing per what you're paying, like it matches up with what would be a lot more expensive on the Swiss side, but you still get the same, like you don't feel like you're getting a cheaper product. It's like they don't sacrifice on quality. And also I think across the range from what I've seen, they seem to be pretty consistent in the level of quality. You know how there's some brands where if you're buying on the lower end, you can kind of tell that you've gotten like their entry level piece. Whereas from the Grand Seikos I've seen, from what I've seen that people have talked about them, they seem to be pretty consistent across the board. Has that been sort of your experience with them as well?
Yes, absolutely. The first Grand Seiko I got was the champagne dialed version of this. So this is a rebuy for me. This is the SBGX259, the white dial. So the first Grand Seiko I got was the champagne dialed one, and I was looking. I think when I went to my AD and I said, okay, I'm going to get a Grand Seiko, and I held it for the first time because I already knew which one I was going to get. I wasn't prepared to spend snowflake money just yet. And so I looked at it and I was thinking, wow, this is insane. Like that's the thing with Grand Seiko. When you look at it, it takes your breath away. Like the polishing and the beveling, it's just breathtaking. Like even the brushing, and it's consistent even with the cheapest. I believe this is the cheapest that they have in their catalog right now. It's 2,700 Canadian. Um, Still takes your breath away. But then when you get to say the SBGM 221, the GMT with the cream dial, that every time I opened up my drawer to put it on my wrist, you inhale because it's so it plays with the light immediately. As soon as you pull the drawer, it's just the light and it shines in every direction, and it takes your breath away. So from the lowest end to even their highest, maybe not the highest, but they really put a lot of work into the watches, and you do get a ton for your money. You get a lot for your money.
So there you have it. That's a little introduction into what makes Grand Seiko so special and what to look for within the brand. I want to give a big thanks to Engineer Wannabe for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Our actual conversation lasted over an hour and a half, so you will most likely find a part 2 of this video covering a few other topics we discussed as well. And of course, make sure you check out his videos on the Grand Seikos he's had in his collection, as well as a lot of his other great watch content that he has on his channel. You can also find him on Instagram at Engineer Wannabe, as well as myself at Shaluso. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Grand Seiko? Would you ever get one? Do you have one? What has your experience been with them? Are they as good as some of the greats? Or do they fit more with some of the entry-level luxury? Where do you find them on the spectrum? What Grand Seikos would you like to buy in the future? And who do you think their true competitors really are? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below as well. And of course, if you like this video, make sure you like it and share it. And if you want to see more watch videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as well so you know when my next video comes out. In any case, thanks for watching this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.